This is Angel Insights, brought to you by SyndicateRoom, the show that dives inside the world of angel investing to discover their tips, tactics and strategies when it comes to approaching startups. I'm so thrilled today to be joined by an incredible angel, Jake Gibson, whose investments include the likes of Datafox, Meadow, the new on-demand delivery service for medical marijuana, and TripleByte, the amazing recruitment platform for engineers, co-founded by YC's own Harj Taggar. Prior to his transition into investing, Jake co-founded NerdWallet, a startup focused on offering price comparison tools for financial products, where he is to this day an advisor. And if that wasn't enough, he's also a mentor with our good friends at 500 Startups. Therefore, without further ado, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome Jacob Gibson, co-founder at NerdWallet. Jake, welcome to Angel Insights. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Now, I'd love to kick off the show by hearing a little about your backstory and your entrepreneurial pursuit and how you made the transition into investing now.
Sure. So in terms of the entrepreneurial pursuit, my co-founder and I are friends going all the way back to middle school. And we were both working on Wall Street at the same time until the financial crisis happened, and then both of us decided to get out. And Tim, my co-founder, had the idea for NerdWallet and had been kind of thinking through it for a while up until this point. And I joined on with him shortly thereafter and kind of helped him to grow it into what it is today. Or I shouldn't say that. Helped him grow it until I left. It's a very different company now, thanks to the people they brought on board. I mean, that's kind of the high-level story. It was about almost 6 years ago now when we started going kind of full speed on NerdWallet.
And for any of our listeners who maybe aren't aware about NerdWallet, can you explain the brief premise?
Sure. NerdWallet, at a high level, basically is trying to help consumers make smarter financial decisions. We believe that the financial industry and people who market personal financial products like credit cards and bank accounts and insurance and stuff like that tend to kind of intentionally obscure how these things work and kind of overcomplicate the terms and conditions and things like that. And consumers don't really know what they're getting themselves into. And so you either spend a ton of time researching things, or you just do whatever the marketing tells you to because you don't have time for that, or you just kind of throw your hands up and give up and just not do anything, which is what a lot of people do. And so NerdWallet's basically trying to simplify all that to make those decisions much easier and do it in a way that's very consumer first. And so people can actually trust our recommendations relative to what else is out there.
And before we delve into your transition to investing, you grew NerdWallet without any outside funding incredibly well. So why did you decide to go down the bootstrapping model?
Sure. The primary motivation was that kind of consumer-first mindset. We wanted to make sure that we can very open, very transparent about our methodology. We wanted to make sure that everything was very fair and unbiased. That meant under-monetizing for a long time. It meant that we couldn't just hyper-optimize our user funnel and stuff like the other financial websites do, because that would mean pushing people into products that weren't necessarily right for them. And so with that model and with that mindset, we didn't believe that taking outside money was really the right thing to do, because we couldn't maximize profitability the way that investors would want us to, or the way that we felt that investors would want us to. And so we held off on that as long as possible.
Have you applied that then to your investment strategy with startups? Do you always prefer growth in the early stages to monetizing?
No, not necessarily. It really depends on the business. Different businesses need different things. And different businesses need different things at different times. Sometimes it makes more sense to focus on revenue. Sometimes it makes more sense to focus on growth. It really just depends on what I feel is the biggest driver, kind of the long-term success of the business now.
And then, having had such success with NerdWallet, what was it that attracted you to the world of investing? Why did you make the move?
Sure. I mean, the primary reason, or I guess there's kind of two reasons. One is, we talked a little bit earlier about my kids. I stepped down from NerdWallet because my wife and I gave birth to twins, and I wanted to be able to spend more time home. And so, I kind of racked my brain trying to find a way to stay involved in the startup industry, to keep my brain working, and also get to meet a lot of interesting people and get to work on a lot of interesting things, but without having to, commit kind of the startup founder type hours because I wanted to be able to spend time home with the family. So investing seemed like kind of the best midway point so that I can kind of control my own schedule, but still be very much involved in the startup ecosystem. And the other motivation is in the last couple of years at NerdWallet, we got a lot of outside help to kind of help us understand how to grow the business. Like a lot of people that we just cold reached out to and were like, hey, you're great at XYZ and we kind of suck at it. So can we pick your brain and learn how you would approach these problems? So I found that to be very powerful. And so I kind of approach investing with that be helpful first mindset because I know how powerful that can be. And I am just trying to help the founders as much as possible first. And then investing is kind of I guess that's like my reward for being helpful,
So I'm really intrigued there by both points. The first was you mentioned the family, and my question there is how do you achieve the balance of being a brilliant family man and staying very in tune with the startup community and very kind of with the current with the deals going by? How do you manage that balance?
Probably not very well.
The honest truth?
Yeah, I never feel like I'm spending enough time at home, and I never feel like I'm spending enough time reaching out to more founders and more investors and stuff like that. I never feel like I'm giving anything 100%, which is kind of true. But I feel like it's the best. I mean, it's the best I can do.
So what are your main methods then of deal sourcing now? Is it through the network? Is it through reaching out through kind of products that you love? What is it for you?
It's almost exclusively through the network. Over the past year, bootstrapped a network of founders, angel investors, VCs, and constantly trying to grow that and trying to meet new people that I find really interesting, that kind of share my values and think about investing in similar ways that I do, so that we can all share deals. And then like I said, I try to be helpful first when it comes to meeting founders or meeting investors. And so a lot of the founders that I work with have been happy to introduce me to other people they know that are starting companies, or introduce me to their other investors. And so largely just growing the business and getting warm leads that way.
And talking of being helpful there, what's the main value that you like to provide? And what have you found is most required by founders and startups in general in terms of value add?
That's the hardest question everybody asks me. What I've spent the most time doing when it comes to working with startups is actually playing therapist, which is not really what I expected.
In terms of personal life?
Not personal life necessarily, but just as a founder who kind of has the empathy and has been where they are before and can kind of have the conversation of, yes, I know everything is screwed up. It's supposed to be screwed up. Startups are messy. It's fine. Try to figure out where your focus should be and like what the most important things are that you should be working on, and then you can just ignore all the other fires that are burning and just focus on the one thing that matters. And so a lot of my conversations sound like that. Now I do get specific requests from people about like SEO and content marketing and stuff, because the stuff that NerdWallet did really well. I get specific requests about fintech, but once I've established a relationship with a founder and we've worked together a few times, a lot of times it just falls back into therapists.
And I'm always intrigued by striking the balance. I just interviewed David Tish at Box, and he said that founders and investors can be friends, and you can build that advice funnel through friendship. And then other investors I've spoken to say, you need to have a clear line between investor and founder. What do you strike there? You said about being empathetic towards founders. Do you think it's important to be their friend?
I don't think that it's necessarily important. Like, I don't know if it's better or worse to be their friend. I'm not opposed to it. I mean, as an angel investor that's investing my own money, I don't have the same fiduciary responsibilities that other investors would have. Like, I could understand the reasoning why you wouldn't want to be friends with the founders, because you might have to make hard decisions down the road to protect your investment. In my case, I don't draw strict lines like that. So I've invested in a handful of companies that were friends first, and we're still friends. And I've invested in a couple of companies that are like quickly becoming good friends of mine. We're spending a lot of time together. And so that's not necessarily the case for all of them. And it's not something I strive for necessarily.
And you mentioned there fintech, an area that, with your past being mostly in NerdWallet, would be deemed to be your speciality. So why have you decided to go for a diverse approach to investing in terms of sectors? What do you feel the benefits are for a diverse portfolio?
Sure. For me, it's largely I think a lot of it's just a learning experience. One of the things that I really like when I meet a founder, when I learn about a new business is that opportunity to learn about new business models, to learn about new customer acquisition strategies, to learn about the founders' backgrounds and stuff like that. It's more interesting to me when I get to sit down and talk with somebody and try to help them out, when I can also learn something in the process and get excited about the problem that they're working on and stuff like that. And so along those lines, I just kind of go wherever my curiosity leads me. And so I invest in a lot of different stuff because there's a lot of different industries and stuff that I want to learn about and that I want to follow and that I'm really interested in. I mean, the tech is a big world, and I think that there's going to be a lot of really interesting stuff that happens going forward, or there's going to continue to be a lot of interesting stuff that happens going forward, a lot of big changes in the way that we live and the things that we do. And, I want to be part of all of that. I don't want to limit myself to one specific sector.
And what are you most interested by, though? What are you most excited for the future?
Oh, man.
That's a bold question, but, In
terms of in terms of me personally, I'm probably self-driving cars. I think is the one thing where I think it's going to have the most impact on kind of our way of living.
And looking back now, how long have you been investing for?
I've only really been investing kind of full-ish time for about a year now.
So when you started, were you apprehensive about making the move into the industry of investing?
A little bit. Probably, I mean, not for the reasons that you would think. I've typically been a relatively introverted person. I don't go to network. I've never really gone to networking events or spent a lot of time proactively networking and stuff. But for the last year, that's kind of been all I've done. And so that was a big leap, kind of cold reaching out to people and asking them to spend time with you. It was a little difficult at first, but I learned pretty quickly that people are very generous with their time, and they also want to meet other, founders and investors alike also want to meet other people, and I can largely leverage the NerdWallet brand a little bit so that they know I'm not just a schmo.
And when you look at it now, though, is there a Pareto's principle you see in your workings where the 20% produces 80% of the results?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit too early for me to tell because I don't have any results yet.
Do you find that tough, then, the feedback loop on the investment game as a whole? It's new for you, having been an entrepreneur where it's very quick feedback cycles. Now it's sorry to depress, but maybe an 8 to 10 year feedback cycle. Is that tough?
Yeah, it's a little tough. I think so. I worked on a trading floor before NerdWallet where everything is microsecond feedback. At least every day you know exactly how much you're worth. And then at NerdWallet, running a company, even if we're not getting constant feedback, there's always stuff to do. There's always fires to put out and stuff like that. And so it's also much quicker moving. And now, like you said, I'm in a position where I'm writing checks and stuff, and I don't know if it's ever going to pay out. If it does, it might be 10 years from now. And there's part of me that wants to, reach out to the founders every day and be like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? But I have the family at home to kind of keep me from doing that, keep me distracted, I guess, so that I'm never bored.
And how involved do you like to be with your investments then?
It's up to them. For some of them, I'm very active. For some of them, we have an hour and a half sit down face-to-face meeting every month, and then for one of them, on top of that, I'm also a board observer. So we have the board meetings every month. And then I also get emails and text messages and chat message stuff every month, stuff like that. For some of them, they send an investor update every month, and there's a little section in there that says asks, or these are the people we're trying to hire, or these are the things that we're struggling with. And then I'll just kind of go through there and see if there's anything that I might be able to help with and just fire off a few emails.
What are your views then on boards at such an early stage? Do you think they should... Some people go for the 2 to 3 man board, and some say you need a wider variety at the early stage. What are your thoughts on what you've seen so far?
I can't say that I've seen enough of it to have a strong opinion. The one board that I'm currently observing is a Series A company where I think it makes a little bit more sense. But it's also only a 2-person board. So
okay.
For most of the seed stage companies, I don't think it makes sense. I think it's a distraction. I think as long as you have proactive, helpful investors that you can reach out to them when you need to and get help, I don't think there's any reason why you should force yourself to put together a deck and sit down every month and go through all this stuff.
Did you have a board when you worked at NerdWallet?
We didn't when I was there. The big fundraise that NerdWallet did was about a year after I left, and there's a board now because of that.
And then being located in SF, you're amongst probably you can probably correct me here, but I think it's probably the biggest sea of angels wanting to invest in startups in the world. So how do you aim to differentiate yourself in the sea of other angels?
It's not something that I've really thought about. I mean, since I'm just one guy working with his own money, my check size tends to be relatively small relative to, like if somebody goes out and raises a $2 million seed round or something like that, I'm not gonna move the needle on that number. So for me, it's largely just getting warm intros to founders from people that they respect and people that I respect. And then, like I said, sitting down and trying to be as helpful as possible. If we click and if they like me and if I like them and if I'm being helpful, a lot of times, they'll just allow me or ask me to be in the round. And that's kind of
how it works.
That's how it works. And it's a huge honor for me to just be allowed into a lot of these deals. And that's what I fight for.
And what would you say has been the hardest aspect of the journey for you this year? I mean, on first glance, it would seem to be the differentiation, but what is it for you?
It's hard for me to say what the hardest thing has been. I mean, kind of building the network from scratch has been tough. It's not something that when I was heads down with NerdWallet, I didn't spend a lot of time reaching out to people outside of NerdWallet itself. We were relatively insular, and because we never raised money or anything, nobody had really heard of us and all this stuff. And so we tended to kind of stick to ourselves. And so this past year has literally been just building this whole thing from scratch. I made almost 180-degree career transition from Wall Street to NerdWallet, and now I'm kind of doing the same thing again, like making a whole nother kind of reinvention switch. And so it's been interesting. It's been a fun challenge, but it's also quite difficult. Then, like you said, there's the long feedback cycle on investing. So I'm putting all this effort in, and I have absolutely no idea whether or not it's actually worth the time. And I'm not going to know for a very long time, probably, whether or not I'm any good at it or whether I'm just kind of pissing money into the wind.
And I'd love to dive into a quick fire round now. So I say a short statement, and you hit me with your immediate thoughts.
Sure.
So your favorite book and why?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
It's one of my favorites. You can tell I need to read more. It's a sign.
I read a ton, so picking a favorite's hard, but I thought about this a little bit, and I think the one book that kind of stands out is one that's in many ways kind of changed my life, called Leaving Microsoft to Change the World, which is a book by a man named John Wood, who was a senior executive at Microsoft, who went on vacation in Nepal and saw that the schools there were pretty poor and everything, and just decided he was going to leave Microsoft, start a nonprofit, and that nonprofit went on to become Room to Read, which is a huge nonprofit now that builds libraries and distributes books and stuff like that in the developing world. And so I've been a big supporter of Room to Read ever since I read that book, and it also got me thinking at a relatively young age about philanthropy and how I wanted to give back.
And then what do you know now that you wish you'd known at the beginning, either in your investing career or in your career as an entrepreneur?
Sure. Don't be afraid to ask for help. That was probably one of my biggest takeaways from NerdWallet. Is something that I try to force upon all the founders that I meet is don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask for help. And people tend to be very open and very generous with their time. And so it can accelerate your learning.
And then what founder do you most respect or admire? It's tough. As long as you don't say Elon Musk, we're cool.
I mean, okay. Actually, that's another hard one because there's too many of them doing pretty amazing things. I think that it takes a lot of courage and a lot of ingenuity to be a founder in the first place. It's kind of scary to go from kind of the world that you knew to, hey, let's go build something with no idea whether or not it's going to work out. So I don't know if I have a favorite. I love the fact that founders exist and that we live in a place that is just full of them and where it's okay to be a founder. Yeah. I just hope there's more and more and more of them over time.
And then what's your favorite startup or investing blog or newsletter?
Twitter.
Okay.
So,
Do you use Twitter as a news source?
pretty much. I'm not loyal to any particular newsletter or anything because they end up just filling up there's too many good ones and they end up just filling up your email. And so I usually just wait until I see things that a lot of people are posting or people that I really respect are posting, and then I'll go read that newsletter or I'll go read that article or something. And so I use Twitter.
And then co-investing. Are you a fan or not? Would you be open to it in the future? Angel-less syndicates? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm open to everything. And I mean, as a relatively small investor that's just trying to kind of tag along for the ride, without co-investing or without the idea of co-investing, I'd be kind of dead in the water. So,
And then your most recent investment and why you said yes.
This one's kind of funny. My most recent investment was in a company called Meadow, which is, on the face of it, they're a medical marijuana delivery service.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they got a lot of press a year or so ago for being, quote unquote, the Uber for weed.
I think I read that article. Yeah. They're alongside Ease, aren't they? They're the same type of business.
Similar. Yep. That's a market that is just going to blow open in the next couple of years, especially as they get descheduled nationally and as recreational marijuana becomes legal in more and more states and potentially federally. I think that that's going to open up just a massive, massive market. I think that we've been living under kind of an outdated taboo. And so it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. And I think there's going to be a lot of huge companies in this space. So.
Well, Jake, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, you too. Thank you very much, Harry.
And again, a huge thanks to Jake for giving up his time today to be on the show. And for the accompanying article for this episode, do not forget to head over to www.syndicateroom.com where you can find the fantastic piece. And if you're loving the podcast, you can follow us on Twitter at SyndicateRoom. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure bringing you today's episode, and we look forward to bringing you next week's episode.